Till the net came along, and then he became a display specialist on the internet, and he became obsolete when search came along, and he became a search specialist on the internet, and he became obsolete when optimization came along, and he became an optimization specialist, and he became obsolete when email came along, and so on and so forth. In the world of media, specialization eventually results in obsolescence. Right? You will be out of a job if you just continue to specialize on one vertical. I really do believe that, right? So, what do you do when your agency or vendor becomes obsolete? Because really what happens in many cases, technology itself grows to a point where what was once done manually is now done automatically. So there is a huge danger of specialization if you have specialist vendors, or if you're a specialist vendor. There's a huge danger that at 3 years from now, whatever it is, even if you're doing social media, there will be somebody out there who will be doing it on a brand-wide basis. Sorry. I do want to, back up this one point. Digital, and say that digital is bigger than you think. I believe there are about 65 million people on the net in India. From what we measure, there's about 375 million people on mobile in India. There's 16 million people on Output alone, 7 million on Facebook alone. There's about 525,000 as of yesterday on Twitter, try to measure. In India alone, they spend about 10 hours a day. There's SEC A, B+. And the interesting thing is, if you take these numbers, there's more people in this audience than watch English TV in India. So if there's anybody who's looking at advertising on an English TV channel, the news, it makes far more sense to be online. You're going to reach a larger number of people. I say this because traditionally, the accusation we are hit with is, internet is a niche medium, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, 6% of India. But I'm saying this is the 6% of India that has about 60% of the buying power, right? And probably even more of the influential power, right? So it's not a mass medium. It's not a super niche medium as it used to be, but it's not a mass medium. So you don't have the reach of Hindi channels, you don't have the reach of regional channels, you don't have the reach of radio. So just so you know, there's 110 million television sets in India. Okay? There's 375 million mobile users. So if you look at it as television set and number of people use, there's 30 million PCs. So we're not that far off. We have 1/3 of the number of PCs or 1/4 of the number of PCs that we have TV sets. It's not 10 times off, but it's growing. It really starts with the consumer. The first thing you sit back and do before I'm doing an online campaign, where's my consumer? Is he on digital? What is he doing? If he's not on digital, don't even bother. Digital is not the answer to all your questions, right? And I've been old enough in this business to know that no one thing is a cure-all for every disease. As things go by, you need to have a combination, right? But if they are on digital, how many of them are digital? And how much time and how much effort do they spend on digital, right? The next thing I would say is, understand this consumer. And I'll take you through an example later on in terms of, so I'll go through it clearly and I'll go through one particular example where I achieve pretty much this. Understand this consumer, do some research. The first thing you sit back and say is, what does he do? What's his behavior? Where is he going? And there's a huge amount of data there. So like we said, we were able to look at the BJP side from outside, we were able to look at the Congress side from outside and say, who is visiting, who is not visiting, who is bouncing off the homepage, who is going through, how much time are they spending, and so on and so forth, right? There's a lot of data out there if you know how to analyze it. Find their path and follow it online. Now, the typical, the 4 steps of marketing is, 1, you create awareness. 2, you generate interest. 3, you create a desire. And 4, you try to get action to happen from the consumer. You want the consumer to first be aware of your product, then be interested in your product and say, okay, I want it. These are typically the 4 stages to marketing. It becomes a cycle after that. Because even after he gets it, you want to keep the consumer service on and make sure that you are able to retain the consumer. So I just look at it from these 4 points of view: awareness, interest, desire, action, and say, how does digital media fit into this? Right? Sorry about this, right? But I didn't want to try to find something to say that no one medium outperforms the others. So I'm not here to say social is better than search or search is better than social. I use both. Right? Just as no army uses just one weapon, use the right mix of all. In some cases I need to use infantry, in some cases I need to use Air Force, but mostly to win a war I need to use everything at my disposal. Alright? So I think it's a fallacy to say suddenly, because we keep coming up by saying, oh, Twitter is the next biggest thing. Sure enough. But 1 year from now we will have something else. It will be the next big thing. 2 years from now there will be something else that will be the next big thing. Right? So let's talk about building awareness and building branding. 9th point I wanted to say here. To me, the tools that typically build awareness and branding in the digital world are display, and I'll talk about what I mean by CPI, not CPM, contextual display, social, search optimization, social media marketing, and online reputation management. So these are things where somebody doesn't know anything about you, is not looking for you, and you want to go in front of them and say, hey, here's my brand, here's my brand, here's my brand. Right? So typically, display in India has been sold on a medium, on a norm called CPM, where M is the Latin word for 1,000 milli, which is cost per 1,000 impressions. The problem with buying on a cost per 1,000 impressions basis, there are actually two problems out there. One, how many of you have ever followed a cricket match online? A huge number, right? So in a one-day international, there's this 50-50, there's 100 overs, so 600 balls board. And there's approximately, if you're watching a match, ODI or seeing it online, there's a page refresh every ball, or more than once between an over. So what really happens is when you're watching one match, the page refreshes at least 1,000 times. Now if you buy an ad and you say 1,000 impressions, guess what? You're burning 1,000 impressions on one viewer. 1,000 impressions does not mean 1,000 people viewing your ad. It means 1,000 times your ad is served 1,000 times. Right? So the problem with buying CPM or buying impressions is that you may only be getting one guy, depending on what you're buying. Data with the stock market page, because the stock market is actually, the pages are refreshed on a tick-by-tick basis, depending on which page you're looking at, maybe once a second, once in 3 seconds, once in 5 seconds. If you're especially buying stocks, if you're especially buying cricket, it's really, really dangerous to buy impressions because your impressions will be burnt before you know it. You think you made a big impact.